It is another episode of the Juice on the Cuse podcast. Wes Cheng alongside Jim Stechschulte. Thanks as always for joining us on the Saturday, October 5th, 2024. We've got so much to talk about. Syracuse with an upsetting, thrilling, exciting, frustrating, call it what you want. They topped number 25 UNLV on Friday on the road. Jim, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this game. Where do you want to start?
I think we should start talking about the good, and we can lead off with the best player on the field last night, and that was LeQuint Allen. He's a guy in my football preview this year I suggested was quite possibly the best player on this team. And although the production hasn't necessarily been there earlier this season, there's nothing I've seen that's changed my mind. We've talked previously about some of the struggles the offensive line has had, but last night, Allen was just remarkable. Just a truly gutty performance. 4 touchdowns, including the game winner, fighting his way into the end zone, converting
what looked like it was going to be. What a run. He dragged a linebacker, the captain of the defense, into the end zone.
Yeah, it looked like he was going to get stoned in the backfield for a loss, and then turned it around and dragged a guy in and pushed through another guy to actually get in for the winning score. And to me, it's all more impressive after what happened on that the first scoring drive in the third quarter, when he took that short pass out in the right flat and immediately got cut down. He hits the ground, rolls over, and reaches for his knee and ends up leaving the field. Willis comes in and plays. I think it was either 6 or 7 consecutive plays after that, which is the longest stretch he's had in any game this year for the freshman running back. Allen came on for the last play of that drive, which of course was a 6-yard receiving touchdown that he fought to get in the end zone. But then, of course, once he got into the paint, you could see him have that little hitch hop where he was favoring his knee that was banged up. So for him to come back and, from whatever actually happened, just whether it was just, temporary pain or there's something actually wrong, but the way he was able to push for that makes his impressive outing all that more impressive to me. A magnificent effort. You can't really speak of it highly enough, frankly.
Yeah, and with LeQuint Allen, and I think Kyle McCord had his moments in that game too. I know we'll get to that shortly, but I want to pull back and take a 10,000-foot view of this game, because call it what you want, but this is a huge win for Syracuse. How they got there, the pluses and minuses, we're definitely going to get to that, especially the minuses. But this is a road win against a ranked opponent. It's the second time they've beaten a ranked opponent this season after they beat number 23 Georgia Tech at home. And it's the first time they've beaten 2 ranked teams since 2018. And then the time it happened before that was 2001. So you can see this is a pretty special event to see 2 wins over very strong teams in the top 25. And regardless of the special teams collapse, we're going to get to that, the defensive lapses, Kyle McCord throwing another bad interception. We have to start there. This is a big deal for Fran Brown and his team. They're 4-1. They have Connecticut still left to go on their non-conference schedule. I think they're going to get to a perfect 4-0. And if you're Adam Terry, and we've talked about his prediction a lot, and you're just looking for 6 wins in a bowl game, Syracuse is already on the cusp of that. And I want to stress that UNLV is a good team, and they were playing at home. They beat 2 other Power 4 opponents this year in Houston and Texas, and they absolutely smoked Fresno State and Utah Tech and the others. So
did they also beat They beat Kansas also. That would be another Power 4 team, correct?
Right. Yes, they beat Houston and Kansas. I'm sorry, I don't know what I just said. Okay. I think they beat Houston and Kansas. So 2 Power 4 teams, and then they blasted the other 2 teams on their schedule. Mm-hmm. I look at the rest of their schedule. There's no reason why they can't win double-digit games this year and finish with a very good ranking. So again, this is a good win. I think a game that under previous coaching regimes, maybe they don't come away with.
Yeah.
And I think because it looked like several times this game was going to slip away from Syracuse, I think you point to 2 specific time periods where you and I were texting each other and a couple of my other, on my text message chains. But in the second quarter, they lost that 14-point lead. I was like, okay, maybe this is going to turn into a blowout. And then again in the fourth quarter, when they blew their 10-point lead, and to their credit, they didn't give up. They didn't hang their heads. And they have LeQuint Allen and Kyle McCord to thank for that. So I'm definitely impressed with the outcome. And I know you wanted to talk about Kyle McCord a little bit more, Jim.
Yeah, he was a little spotty up and down last night. But he was terrific out of the box. 11 straight completions, just leading 2 just simple marches down the field. For scores after that, though, he was a little choppy, a little hit, a little miss. And then he got away with a fistful of near interceptions, as well as the one poor throw that he made that was picked off. But he's, I talked earlier about LeQuint Allen might be the best player on the team. I still stick with that. Kyle McCord is the most important player on this team. He is I don't want to say single-handedly, but he's doing the lion's share of the work of keeping them viable in these games. I mean, we've talked about his ability to spread it around different receivers. Umari Hatcher, 0 catches last night, but he's had games this year where he's led the team in catches. Rondé Gadsden back from the near dead with a flat-out dominant performance. But the guy who's conducting that offense and making it all go is McCord. I mean, he was out of the gate. He was so out. He was putting the ball on the hands or on the body of the receiver, whichever was needed. If it was a sit route where the receiver was almost boxing out the defender, he's putting it in, like drilling it between the numbers, or he's laying it right on Trevor Pena's hands for a 30-yard gain. He was terrific last night, with a few exceptions, of course, in an up and down effort.
Yeah, and as you said, there's no other player on the team that can do what Kyle McCord's doing. So in that regard, he's absolutely the most important player. And I do want to say that he didn't give up after that backbreaking interception that led to the 38-31 score. And he led them down the field with 2 minutes and 38 seconds left on the clock. You're like, well, what's this team made of? It turns out their mental makeup is actually pretty good. So you have to give kudos to the team when they face adversity. They put themselves in that adverse situation, but they also pull themselves out of it. So there needs to be credit where credit is due. And again, I think it's a fantastic win for Syracuse over a ranked team on the road. We haven't been able to say that in the last 20 years very much, Jim. So color me impressed.
And circling back to what you just said about their mental makeup, it was very similar to how they hung on against Georgia Tech. And the fact that even though they did give up the score to lose the game against Stanford, they also had a drive led by McCord that got them right back. And they had to rally on a night where the offense was not working well. The running game was terrible, but like McCord still led them on that fourth quarter drive that got them the touchdown to go in front with 3 minutes to go, and could have been a winning score in that game as well. It's really a pleasant change, perhaps. It might be the best way to describe it, seeing how they are able just to bounce back from whatever hits them.
Yeah, it was definitely a bend not break situation for Syracuse. And speaking of breaks, we're going to take a quick break. We'll have more on the game after. This is the Juice on the Cuse podcast. This is the Bet Online read. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in our $200,000 mega contest. Pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with over 150 slot games. Head over there to get on the action today. Bet Online, the game starts here. Back on the Juice and the Cuse podcast, Wes Cheng alongside Jim Stechschulte. Jim, a win masks a lot of underlying problems, but there were certainly plenty of issues with Syracuse on Friday. I did want to talk about the defense for a little bit. They were bend not break. There were certainly good moments, but there were also bad moments as well. So, Jim, what did you have for us on that inconsistent defense?
Well, I think it's more of an overarching thing. Like last night, they were put in some bad spots, and it's not the easiest thing in the world to defend an extremely short field, or, they weren't able, their teammates didn't always help them out or give them the best possible position to start off in. But my overarching theme is that with some of the issues we've seen on the defense, like we've seen some problems with tackling throughout the season to this point, and it's just not consistently there. I mean, guys are going to take bad angles and things like that. There will be mistakes, but when you have a guy wrapped up around the legs, you have to bring him down. You can't let him slip that tackle, things like that. And what concerns me about the tackling the most is that there's not a particular facet of the defense that's particularly strong. They can be bend but not break, but they need, the thing that helps them not break is making big plays. And they got a couple of them last night. The Chestnut interception did give the offense a short field, a nice change of pace. And then Willis had that burst right around the left side for the touchdown right after it. And then, of course, Fadil Diggs with the sack in overtime to force the UNLV field goal to give Syracuse a chance to win. 2 great plays, 2 big plays. But the problem is they're just not coming enough. Chestnut's pick was the 5th one registered by the Orange this year. Those are the only turnovers they have in 5 games. They've only even forced 1 fumble, and that's by a guy who I'm really hoping gets back soon, Marlo Wax. So it's been 4 games without even forcing a fumble, and they didn't even recover the one they did force. The third down defense is pretty good. They came into the game last night in the top 30 in the country, which is very good. Not great elite but that's one of those things that can really help. And tackles for loss feeds into that, because when you put your opponent in bad situations, it's easier to get that stop because it's harder to convert a 3rd and 14 than a 3rd and 8 or what have you. They're, again, as far as turnovers go, they're not particularly highly ranked in the country. And then as far as sacks go, they have, I believe it's 11 on the year, but at the same time, when you take out
most of them came against Holy Cross. Yeah.
4 sacks in the 4th quarter against Holy Cross. If you set those aside in a game that was a 3-touchdown game against an FCS foe, it's 7 sacks in 19 other quarters of play. The defense simply needs to be able to make a few more big plays to help them out and help out their offensive teammates as well.
Yeah. So, Jim, there are definitely bright spots in the game. But to your point, there's a sore lack of playmakers on this side of the ball with Marlowe Wax out. And I think the most concerning thing is it's tied at 31. And, this is after the McCord interception. And UNLV has 94 yards ahead of it. And the defense really just wasn't able to stop them. And UNLV almost bled the clock dry. It's almost good that they scored that touchdown when they did, because it gave McCord and team enough time to answer and send the game to overtime, because there's only 23 seconds left when Syracuse scored the equalizer. So definitely concerns on that part. And you talked about the lack of turnovers and sacks that the defense has generated. Of course, that's concerning. And I look at this defense and the overall stats. Now, I know UNLV is one of the better offensive teams in college football, but Williams looked like a star last night. He looked like the second coming of Steve Young, 354 total yards. And then he completes 21 of 25 passes for 227 yards and 3 touchdowns. He only missed 4 passes the entire night. Now, granted, one of them was the Deuce Chestnut, but Elijah Robinson really has a lot of work to do with this defense. And you just have to hope, again, that Wax is going to be back soon. You just don't know when that's going to happen. But I did want to actually talk about another huge problem, right, which is the special teams. And I put special in air quotes because one game after they missed 3 field goals against an FCS opponent, the special teams nearly single-handedly gave this game away against the Rebels. A block punt for a touchdown. Another time, Jack Stonehouse pulls the ball down because he's about to get his punt block. He gets blasted inside his own 10-yard line. I know that you talked about it a lot with the return unit. We've had all sorts of issues with Malachi James. More recently, you've seen Willis. So, Jim, you and I were texting during the game. We always do. We were joking. It's almost better that Syracuse goes for it on 4th down as opposed to giving up more yards and points on punts. And I know we're somewhat half kidding because the punt team it's just been atrocious. And I wanted to call your attention to Brady Denenberg, who's been officially benched. Jaden O took all the PATs on Friday. He went 5 for 5 and had that 21-yard chip shot at the end of the first half. But at some point during the season, there's no doubt in my mind that special teams is going to cost them a win.
It's hard to look at how the special teams has been performing, especially lately, and think otherwise. I mean, I know it was talked about it being bad in the Georgia Tech game because they had a blocked field goal and a near block punt, I believe, or was a block punt. They're all kind of running together by this point.
They're all blending in with each other now.
But it's just becoming a trend and not a one-off. And like you said about Yassine Willis, I don't know how much he returned kickoffs when he was in high school because he's a freshman, but he had one that he caught at the 4 and only got back 7 yards. It's not all entirely on him. There had to be someone downfield to tackle him at the 11-yard line. But also he misjudged a kickoff that bounced in the field of play twice before he grabbed it. He was able to return it to the 17, but still the ball's not supposed to hit the ground in the field of play on a kickoff because that's a live ball. And it could be another basically free turnover for UNLV if he doesn't get that. Like you said about Jaden O, it was nice that he made all 5 extra points, and the field goal was a glorified extra point, as you said, a 21-yarder. I don't know that it's kick. I wouldn't say place kicking is by any means solved because I don't even know if they were trying to rush on the field goal because it was so short. But the punt blocking is inexcusable. It's been bad all year. It's somehow worse than even before. It's like as you set it up, it is going to cost them at some point this year. It's just it's happening. It's already costing them now. It gave UNLV 7 points and a short field that they gave them 7 more points. And this is a game that went to overtime. There was also a 23-yard punt return allowed. And it's just, it's just too much that it's going to eventually cause the bend and break defense to break. And then the offense, there will be some time when the offense just won't be able to keep up and overcome all the holes that the rest of the team is being put into by the special teams units.
Yeah, and James Alono is the special teams coordinator, and he's got his work cut out for him. This is really, I can't think of a time when Syracuse's special teams were this bad. I mean, you and I probably have been following Syracuse athletics in one form or another for over 60 years between the two of us, and I don't remember a Syracuse special teams being this bad. And that's going to eventually have to fall on the coaching, because this is. You look at the offense, and the offense is humming under a new coordinator, and then the defense, again, bend or break, but they are a competent defense under a new coordinator. And special teams has just taken a huge step back from the Dino Babers era into the Fran Brown era. And at some point, you do have to look at the coach, and you do have to look at the special teams coordinator, James Alono.
Yeah, it's one of those. Special teams is one of those things that head coaches will always talk about being one of three facets of the game, and they treat them all equally. And at the same time, sometimes when you watch, I mean, it's probably a little more, I think it's more prevalent in like college, where we look at how like specialists aren't necessarily going to be on scholarship until they've come to the school and earn their way on or something like that. So they're not exactly treated the same way in many cases. But we can see we're getting a very clear illustration right now of the importance of special teams for a team that is probably somewhere in the on the scale of good to pretty good, maybe even capable of touching very good. But it's just becoming a big enough problem that they can't reach their peak because they're constantly making things much harder on themselves with self-inflicted wounds that should frankly be avoided at this level of play.
Well, we're at the end of our show. We have Syracuse at NC State, October 12th on the ACC network at 8 p.m. So certainly looking forward to talking about that with you more. And for Jim Stechschulte, this is Wes Cheng. You've been listening to the Juice on the Cuse podcast on the Believe in Rivals networks, and we will see you next time.